Well, it's a prime example of the kind of thing you talk about in the movie, which is that this sort of weaponizing of calling people racist whenever they raise any issue or question about anything related to race is a real problem in modern society. It's fueled by social media, by cancel culture, by all of these terribly insidious things which are going on. And what it creates is an atmosphere where people almost dare not talk about anything to do with race. The fear of immediately being called a racist.
Exactly. And that's because you have, and this is what we try to expose in the film, you have these grifters, these so-called anti-racist types, DEI types, and this is their goal. This is what they do. They try to make these conversations completely, fraught. They want you to be focused on it all the time. They come to you and they say, oh, you think you're not racist because you think racism is a simple thing. If you don't hate people of other races, you think you're not racist. But actually, you are racist. And the fact that you think you aren't racist is just more evidence that you are even more racist than you thought. And they keep people in, it's like, for people that fall into this, it becomes this like spiral where they're looking into themselves, constantly inspecting their own minds and their own motivations and sort of convincing themselves that they're actually racist when they aren't. And part of that is, again, making the concept of racism way more complicated and abstract than it actually is, because in reality, racism is just having a negative opinion of someone because of their race, thinking a certain race is inferior to yourself. That's racist. If you don't have that feeling about someone, then you're not racist. You might have.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin. I see it in your face already, PC. I already know it's going to be a good one. So we are here breaking down a conversation between Piers Morgan and Matt Walsh on the heels of the release of Matt Walsh's latest movie, Am I Racist? I haven't seen the movie, and I'm learning about the movie as far as the plot and the whole concept behind the movie. But for what I have learned is Matt Walsh went around to different sects of American society. He went undercover and some sects, some he went as himself, but asking questions, sitting down, having conversations, kind of like a mix of a Borat style and an investigative journalism style of finding out what are people's thoughts, ideas, concepts, and how people act around racism. And it's kind of hilarious because with him talking to various different groups of people, he got various different types of answers and pushback and feedback and all these things here. And as you see as we go, one thing that he did learn though is how involved white women are in the anti-racism movement, almost to the point to where they've like hijacked the movement. And you'll see as we're talking about it. But from what has been played so far, basically, this is the beginning of the conversation that Matt Walsh and Piers Morgan was having. And, they're talking about weaponizing racism and social justice warriors putting themselves out on the line for racism and people declaring themselves racism because I am white and all these different things. So from what we've heard so far from this minute of the clip that we've heard so far, PC, I saw it in your face, man. So what's on your mind? How you feel about what they're talking about so far?
Well, it's kind of what I know. I know racism isn't that. Just a bunch of people who decide they don't like you because of your race, and now all of a sudden you're a racist. That's not racism. I mean, that's discrimination. That might be prejudice, but it might even be bigotry, but it's not racism. Racism carries a whole lot more weight to it. So to call somebody a racist based on that, I think white people have figured out ways to water down things that hurt other people. Boom. And so it dampens the blow for what they do. And just like a lot of other things, I remember being in college and being a so-called racism 101 facilitator, workshop facilitator, and back in '92. And when we would go around to we would have the various people come into the school. I went to Bloomsburg University. We'd have various people from that particular area come in. For a lot of them, I was the first black person they ever met, but they had a distinguished way of viewing black people. And it was very negative. And even if I wasn't the first black person, I was one of the first. And their first experience, typically a negative one, like the cashier at McDonald's was mean to me. So I hate all black people. And so, but one of the things we learned, or one of the things that was taught back then, was racism was a power relationship, about power and dominance. So you had to, it had to infuse discrimination, the ability to discriminate based on your biases and so forth. And it also had to do with the fact that you had the power to inflict harm on another group of people, or consequences just basically strict on race. Black people don't have that.
Right.
We can be bigots. And I know a lot of black people that are bigots. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of white people who are bigots too. We can, like I said before, we can discriminate in the small sections of the world. So you come into my neighborhood, I can make you feel uncomfortable. Right. But at the same time, I don't have the power to influence your economics, your politics. I don't have the power to impose my will upon you and have it backed up by a structure in society that will then sort of empower you to do such things in that regard. And I'm not even going to get into the Dr. Frances Cress Welsing definition of racism and white supremacy, or Elder Nellie Fuller, who was her Jegna, in terms of the whole concept of racism and white supremacy. Because then it takes it another level, it takes it another layer deeper. We don't even need to go there tonight on this situation, because this guy here looked like he was going around. What is it, Peter? What's his name again?
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. I don't know why he looked like a Peter to me, but Matt Walsh is going around trying to sort of like do this thing where it's like revisionist history on the whole concept and topic of it all, but it's very disingenuous. And I'll land my plane right there.
Well, a couple things though that's interesting about this is, for one, like I'm gonna keep repeating, the main people that he's talking to about this is white women, or some of the key people are white women. But also notice how they're talking about racism absent of the system of white supremacy. They're talking about racism as in it's just by itself and more individualistic form, rather than a systematic thing that is impacting black people. So, you have to talk about racism and white supremacy together. And that's what they're not doing.
And I will say one last thing. To either interject white women in this conversation is just how convoluted this whole thing really is.
What?
Because white women try to identify as a discriminated group or whatever. They're just one half of the other wing of white supremacy. So,
well, that's what I'd agree with them on, the pushback of, okay, well, hold up. Like, because if I'm saying that in my voice, hold up, you all were there complicit with white men. Stop acting innocent.
Oh yeah, well, it's a proverbial throwing the rock and hiding the hand.
You're still there. So Pat, what do you think about this clip, man? What do you think about what they're saying so far?
From what's been said so far, and I agree with PC. I think it becomes interesting because the conversations always become a game of words with friends, right? Mm-hmm. With people that are trying to people that don't seem to understand the difference between a verb and an adjective, right? Mm-hmm. They like this whole conversation, they're using the term racist to talk about racism. They're trying to individualize a thing.
Right.
And so, just because you're a racist doesn't mean that you can do racism. And I think that's what, like, PC, like, I'm going to be the technical Ted interpreter of the night.
Do it.
And I think that's what PC was kind of getting at when he's talking about systems. People need to understand that, me personally, I don't care if you're a racist or not. You can think that you're superior to me. You can think you're better than me because you're white and I'm black or what. I don't care about what you believe. What I care about is how that belief impacts me. If you can hold that belief and not impact me in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Somebody out in the woods hunting deers across the globe from me that thinks that he's better than me because he's white and I'm black, I'm sorry, Joe. I really don't care. Now, if this person opens a business that produces all of the or 90% of the meat in the global market, and that belief causes them to sell me meat at an elevated price, okay, well, now I care. Because now that racist belief has become a part of a system of racism that keeps me down. That person could also start that same business, have that same belief, and charge me the same rate that they charge somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things with like I hear when I'm listening to this clip is that they're talking about being a racist. And then trying to ignore the fact that when people are having these conversations, they're talking about racism. And I think that's because in general, we allow conversations about racism to be hijacked by talks about racist.
Right. And, two main points in this. No, those are like the two main points of what racism actually is and how the conversation about racism has been hijacked. Because like you're saying, they're talking about racist. There's been individualized. The term racism is being used, but they're talking about being a racist, and they're still not including the system of white supremacy, because the system of white supremacy existed before racism.
But I want to say one more thing about this clip, specifically about this clip. I've been thinking about it since the clip started. And it's kind of like, what's wrong with being in your head? Because he said they want to get people all in their head, bogged down with all these thoughts. That's what people should be until they figure it out. You should be in your head, bogged down with these thoughts. And if you can't process those thoughts, then maybe that's a sign that you should not be engaged in this conversation.
Well, of course, white men supposed to push back.
Right, but it's just like, to me, the problem isn't that people are being forced to delve into their thoughts about their place in the world and how they view society. The problem is that people are scared to get into those thoughts. And so they frequently look for ways to get out of that position where they're forced to look at themselves in the mirror. So, and then people are trying to control the narrative on both ends. It's always funny to me because these people will say stuff like, because they think that we believe this and they want us to do this and they this and they, and it's like, no, but you're not even listening to what they're saying.
Right. But it gets even more.
And that's on both sides.
It gets even more interesting. Let's keep going.
Other flaws, we all do,
right?
But you're not racist. Congratulations. You can just move on from that. But they don't want you to move on.
No, exactly right. And also, it diminishes people who suffer from genuine racism and their validity of their cause, because there's so much other stuff being thrown out there which just isn't racism. And so actual racism gets kind of lost in the wash. I want to just show viewers who've not obviously seen the movie yet, which is, I can't encourage them to do it enough. It's fantastic. This is a clip from the trailer for it.
Let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Being a white, straight, cisgender man, it's the top of the pile.
I'm on the top of the pile. That's me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Can you please leave?
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one.
What is racism?
Martin Luther King said not to judge people by the...
Martin Luther King said a lot of stuff.
Is America inherently racist?
What the hell is that?
The word inherent is challenging there. America is racist to its bones. All of the...
So inherently.
Yeah.
The entire system has to burn. And I'm not going to even use save this country. This country is not worth saving. This country is a piece of shit.
It's kind of terrifying, you know, and but riveting. You go undercover, kind of Borat style. It's great. It's a great idea the way you do this. But
before they get into what they're talking about, I just PC, what's your thoughts on the because that's the trailer for the movie. So what's your thoughts on the trailer? Because I have thoughts.
I just started laughing when he decided he was going to go undercover. and he tried to effeminate himself and put the ponytail in the back and started talking more so like he was a member of the LGBT community. And I think that's a funny thing because it sort of like creates this paradigm where you think that there's an allegiance between the Black community and LGBTQ in terms of all those things, when really when you think about the LGBTQ, they basically stole all the talking points and all the political positions that Black people had during the civil rights movement and sort of leapfrogged ahead of Black people in regards to becoming that what do they call it? The protected class, the class that needed protection and all those different things. I thought that was hilarious just watching that take place. That's why I was trying to hold it in. But
you know, it's interesting. So I was watching a video earlier of Matt Walsh and Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson was basically telling him, because if you watch some more of the clips of that Matt Walsh has on his channel about the movie, in some spaces that he went in his undercover thing, he was found out. So Jordan Peterson was like, because you're talking about the image, Jordan Peterson was coaching him on his voice. Like, you have to speak like them. You have to have a higher tone and you have to have a softer pitch. And, you know, you go in there sounding like a confident man. You got to lighten that up. And I was like, that's interesting that you said that, going in. Jordan Peterson said what he said.
Yeah. Jordan Peterson knows the whole game. So, but you know, aside from that, when you first start off, there's a table full of white women and one sister there, and it seems like she is sort of like we could tell this is a table full of feminists, and so the sisters are aligning with all these white women, which is kind of like suspect to me in regards to that, because it speaks to who she identifies possibly as her peer group. But I'm not going to dig too deep into that.
Have you seen? Have you? We got the. I want to find a clip of that dinner. And we got to break that down. That's going to be a good breakdown. Basically, that's, from my understanding, that Black woman and another Black woman, I can't remember their names, but they are going to mention their names. They go around and have these dinner with well-to-do white women and get them to realize their racism and their white guilt and to help them try to get over it. So they basically, these women pay to have somebody come and tell them how racist they are and how messed up they are and how they contribute to the system and all these different things, which is utterly useless, because the thing is, like, they're going to go back and you talk to the white women so they can go back and educate their husbands, because it's the white men.
Yeah. Good luck with that. That kind of reminds me of all the white folk that used to go onto the cotton plantations and sort of like pay their penance for slavery. So they would be out on a plantation for a day picking cotton, and then, you know, it would cleanse their soul of all the sins that were committed by their forefathers. When I see what was just presented in that clip, is basically Matt Walsh is making a mockery of the whole concept and the conversation around racism,
because it's watered down.
Well, it's just, as he said, as a white man, you don't deal with racism until you come across somebody that's not white. And most of white America can spend their entire life living a lifestyle that doesn't come in contact with Black people. You watch like the show Seinfeld, the show Friends, it actually exemplifies the fact that they can go their entire existence and barely bump into anybody Black. They don't have to deal with the consequences of being of racism. They don't have to deal with the consequences of being turned down for a bank loan because they're white. They don't have to deal with the consequences of redlining. They don't have to deal with the consequences. Like the most they'll deal with is the fact that somebody Black will make them feel uncomfortable about their privileges being white. But that's sort of lost over because they get to go home again. They get to leave that situation and brush it off. And not to mention the fact that they're the recipients of ill-gotten goods. So you live in a country where 98% of your wealth came from somewhere where blood was shed, and now and people were demonically oppressed, and you benefited from that. And so you come outside, the sun is shining. It's like the mayor who went to the projects in Chicago in the 70s and decided that he was going to prove that you could live on a welfare check for the month, and he stayed in the projects, but he had police protection, and he sealed the back door so nobody can come in the projects. So he stayed there for a month and said he lived comfortably off of a welfare check and food stamps. You know what I'm saying? But he only did it for like I don't even know if it was a whole month. I think it might have been a week.
Grifting.
So when you leave, you go back to your mansion or whatever. And I'm not saying all white people go back to their mansion, because I've been in Mississippi and I've been in Tennessee. So I know white folk ain't all going there. I've seen some things in Texas. I know white folk ain't all going to their mansions, but the bottom line is, and here's where the real, like, the gist of it all. George Wallace, who was the racist governor, who was the anti-black white supremacist governor of Alabama, once said that if poor whites and black people ever got together, they can rule this country. But the benefit is all they have to do, and I think LBJ said the same thing. Lyndon Baines Johnson said the same thing. If all we got to do to maintain our control over poor white folk is to tell them their whiteness makes them better than the richest black person, we'll never have to worry about them aligning with black people and fighting against the true enemies of the state. You know, the engineers and the proprietors of white supremacy themselves. You never have to worry about them facing them, because they'll always be at odds, and they'll always be the protectors of whiteness against black people.
Right. Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Did you notice how boisterous and radical the white women were in the trailer?
Yeah,
And she said, "America is racist and needs to burn." The white women are saying this. This is hilarious to me.
No, I think, like, I was laughing because the thing is, it's comedy to me.
It is.
But that part, I'll be honest, it triggered my white woman fatigue. You know, I'm just getting over it. For those of y'all that don't know, I've been doing Professor Carl and Joseph have been giving me a lot of therapy for my white women fatigue, because I'm at a time in my life where I'm experiencing a lot of white women. And they're sharing their thoughts, and listening to white women's thoughts can be quite draining on non-white people.
Social justice warriors, man. Y'all is
And so that part, like, her saying Republicans and Nazis, I thought that was amusing. But then when she started talking about America needs to burn, because I'm like, as a white woman, you have benefited more from racism than anybody else in America. Period.
What are you talking about?
Bar none. You have benefited more from white privilege than any other white person on the history of this earth. You in particular, lady. No, I'm not even talking about white women now. I'm talking about you. You in particular have benefited more from white privilege than 95% of the white people walking the earth will ever even get to use. Like, the fact that you could sit at a table
and say what you just
say that. So, but then, you know, it also, to echo PC's point, black people oftentimes, and I'm gonna always bring it back to black people because that's what I'm talking to, but black people oftentimes forget just how small of a percentage of the population we are. 70% of white people don't have any non-white friends.
Mm-hmm.
None. There was a study done in 2013, I think it was. It was 75% of white people at the time had all white friend groups. They just updated the study in 2022. It's a pre-report. It said that 73% of conservatives, 66% of liberals and progressives, Democrats, and 66% of independents. Basically, 70% of white people still have majority white friend groups. At least 3 out of 4 of their friends are white, or they have no black friends, no non-white friends at all. They don't hang with y'all. They live in a whole different world.
Right.
The only time you should, and I want black people to understand this, because this is how you understand why they get so tired of you complaining about them on their TV screens, because that's the only time they see you and you're whining.
Yeah.
Every single time they see you, you whining.
Because they got to go back and listen to their women whining too. So they tired of y'all because they know it's an empty whine from their women. Well, what are you talking about, Susan? You're winning, Susan. You're not going to burn this down, Susan. You're not going to give up your life, Susan. Well, don't tell anybody.
And I want to clarify real quick. I'm sorry. I want to clarify real quick because I said have 75% white friend groups. No, that correction is I was thinking about something else. They have all white friend groups, no black people. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
go ahead.
The ones you see that act out like that woman, these are women that have been, not just women, but people, white people who have been rejected in some way, somehow from the mainstream of white society. And therefore they go into full rebellion mode, but basically it's like having a tantrum. Yes. And they want because they feel like they've been robbed of their white privilege. Somebody has to pay, damn it. And if that person, if that group of people happen to be white, well, I need to align myself with those who white folk consider to be their enemies. So let me go over here to you niggers. Let me go over here to and because the Republican Party, for some strange reason, seems to be the party of white folk, I don't even understand because the Democrats are just as white as Republicans. But because they can align that and make that pseudo alignment with the liberals, so-called liberals, which is just two sides of the same coin. They both see the other groups, the rest of the world, as inferior. But this is one of the biggest the biggest shams in all of it, because basically it's just white folk having tantrums because they weren't left out. Right. And if you think about it, the whole, like, the World War I started over some stuff like that, where the Austria felt like they were left out of the goodies that came from the Berlin Conference, where they carved up Africa. And that literally was like, okay, well, we're going to take out y'all, we're going to take out y'all king. And that literally was the first shot fired during the World War I. And it's similar, that similar type of tantrum is taking place on smaller scales, but taking place when you have white folks talking about the patriarchy and all this other stuff. Like, you benefit so much from the patriarchy that if the patriarchy decided to leave, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself.
Hey, also, black people, remember, this is what happens when you have no power and you also have people advocating for you who have not even asked you what's the best way to advocate for you. So yeah, you got to do better.
White folks are going to tell us what we need.
Of course, because they got the power.
As I was watching it, it reminded me of something that was said by Morgan Freeman many, many years ago. I think it was a 60 Minutes interview. Let's take a little clip of what he said then.
I don't want a Black History Month.
This shit again.
Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
And what happened when he don't, Morgan?